Hey you guys, this is Professor Vitt, and we are going to go over the final portion of your paper, part 3 of 3, where you actually physically write the paper. I know it's taken a long time to get here, especially with some of those discussions. The second one was kind of brutal for you guys. I apologize. I really appreciate you guys reposting your arguments so that you could engage with your colleagues discussing the material. I try not to make busy work, and I try not to make too many errors for you guys, and I know it's frustrating when you have to redo things, so I really appreciate your effort on that. Thank you so much. Okay, so on to Roswell. Our guiding quote here is from Brian Greene. Brian Greene's at Columbia last time I checked, and he's a physicist who also does, I think, quite a bit of math, and so he may be kind of a hybrid math-physics person, but the point is, his quote will govern us, and it says, "Exploring the unknown requires tolerating uncertainty." And that's really what Roswell is, right? There's a tremendous amount of uncertainty involved in this case. And so it's important that we try to keep an open mind and just accept the uncertainty as we move forward through the case, trying to establish what it is that actually occurred. So, first things first, this is going to be due November the 3rd before midnight. It's probably going to be around 4 to 5 pages double spaced. For some of you, that's going to be longer. For some of you, that's going to be shorter. It really depends on you. It's to give you an idea. I don't need a 50 or 20 page paper. I don't need a 2 or 3 page paper. It's going to be probably around 4 to 5, probably for some people 1 or 2 pages more. Okay, couple of things. One thing to note about the paper packet is there's one thing that we need to be careful of when we're writing, and that's plagiarism. For most students, they've not heard of this before, or if they have, they're aware that they need to be on alert for it. Plagiarism, it's nicely defined here, but it's essentially when you take someone else's ideas and you don't credit the source. Now look, it's very hard to have original ideas, so it's perfectly acceptable to reference somebody else's analysis or something like that when you're writing. It happens all the time, but it's important that you let your reader know, hey, this isn't really my idea, this is somebody else over here who had this idea. So when you do that, you're going to follow this format called ICE, right? ICE. So what you do is you identify, using quotes, the language that is not yours, or the idea that's not yours. So, Karl Koff argues blah, 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 right? And then you can quote what he says. So you identify what he says, right? Then the next thing that you do is you cite. So you just tell me in parentheses, and you can just do it in accordance with MLA, it's fine. Who said this? So you put their last name there and some numbers, and you let me know who it is, right? And then lastly, you explain the quote. Don't just let the quote do all of the work. Sometimes when people write a paper, they include big chunks of quotes because it helps them meet what they think is really the length requirement. But the length requirement is a guide. If you're quoting something and it's a big quote, you need to tell your reader why you're quoting this. You can't expect the quote itself to do all of the work for you, right? So here's an example, right? Identify someone else's work. So here you go. There's absolutely no question the debris is from. So I wrote here, right? This is how you would not do this. So this is somebody who's just cut and pasted from an article, and this is now part of their paper, right? It's just one big cut and paste from the article. Don't do that. Don't do that. Instead, identify that person's language using these quotes right here and right here. There's absolutely no question that this debris is from an ML307 radar reflector. Then you cite the work right here, somebody's name and what page it's taken from in the article or book. Then you explain why you're mentioning it, right? You tell somebody, don't just have the quote do it. I want to hear from you and your analysis, your insight, your evaluation. And so you tell me why you're quoting this, right? So here we go. Here's an example. Concerning the physical evidence of the Roswell crash as it was photographed on blah, 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 quote, there is absolutely no question that this is the debris from an ML307 radar reflector. Okay, That is to say, the one objective piece of evidence that we have about the Roswell crash is that its debris was wholly terrestrial in origin. This is important because Marcel later changes and you keep talking. In other words, it doesn't have to be this, you don't have to write in this way or anything. But if you're going to quote somebody, if you're going to use somebody else's ideas, quote them, cite them, and then just explain in a sentence or two or three or four if you need it, why you quoted that person. And the shortcut for this is ICE. Identify, cite, and explain. Okay, so that's it. Now, what does this thing got to look like? What actually has to happen? I've written the outline of the paper for you, and so you should be able to proceed in a pretty straightforward way. Hopefully, people, when they see this outline, they say, oh my gosh, this is so simple. You've done this outline before. You did it more or less with the Atlantis discussion. So you're going to write a paper about Roswell. You're going to use your discussions of arguments, counter-arguments, and evaluations, and you're going to incorporate all of that into your outline. So I have started a roadmap paragraph for you here. This is the first thing that your paper starts with, right? So this is what it might read. The roadmap paragraph has a couple of components. The first component it has is the very first sentence of the paper, and the very first sentence of your paper must be your thesis statement. It must read, the aim of this paper is to apply, and then whatever you want to do, right? However you want to phrase the claim being made with regard to Roswell. The aim of this paper is to apply reason in determination of whether or not aliens landed in Roswell on or about July, okay? So this is your first thing. It's the first thing you want to tell your reader. Don't worry about giving me context or background to start the paper. You'll do that down below. First thing you need to tell me, what are you writing on? Okay, then after that, after your thesis statement, which is the very first statement in your paper, it's the first statement in your roadmap paragraph, you're then going to tell me the stuff you're going to talk about and the order in which you will talk about it. So you tell me, first, I will clearly state the claim that aliens landed in Roswell, New Mexico on or about July 1947 and provide some historical background and context. Boom. Second, I will evaluate whether the claim is extraordinary. Third, I will fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, right? You'll do that and it'll look just like that. Now somebody will say, do I have to put the first? Do I have to put the second? Do I have to put the third? Yes. Here's why. It makes for a more unified and organized structure. And what I need you to focus on in this case is the writing, not how it's structured. This format, I've used this format, I've published under this format. It's perfectly acceptable for a wide variety of settings. If you were writing a quarterly report for your job or for your career, right, this would be a perfectly acceptable format. You could say, the aim of this report is to review the 4 quarters of 2016 to 2017 with regard to fiscal fitness for Acme Company. First, I will discuss the quarterly earnings. Second, I will explain the drop in the price to earnings ratio by reference to an investment in, blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on and on. So this is just a way of writing a paper and writing it clearly. And the reason we do it this way is so you can focus on writing the paper instead of organizing it, right? Okay, so then what you do is you take your very first sentence here, right? It's the second sentence, but it's the one that reads first. It says, first, I will clearly state the claim that aliens landed in Roswell. Okay, you take this sentence, and this sentence becomes the first sentence of your second paragraph. This sentence here becomes the first sentence of the next paragraph once you're done discussing the claim, right? So each one of these sentences becomes a topic sentence for your subsequent paragraphs. So in your second paragraph, you're going to state the claim, right? And so you'll say, when you start that second paragraph, first I will clearly state the claim that aliens landed, da-da-da-da-da. Then you'll tell me about it. You'll state the claim, you'll tell me a little bit about the context and so forth. Then you move on to evaluating support for the claim, and you tell me when you do that. Second, I will evaluate whether the claim is extraordinary, right? So now you're going to tell me about what kind of evidence is available for it? What kind of claim is it? Is it an extraordinary claim, right? Da, 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 da. Then, fourth, you're going to talk about your alternative explanations, What else could this have been? Could it have been a weather balloon or Project Mogul? Could it have been memory error or just telling and retelling of anecdotes, right? You need to explain what it could be. Next, you will apply Occam's razor. I have it written here, but the idea is, look, what is the most simple explanation? All these people were wrong, or aliens really landed. Sixth, you're going to do a reductio. And the idea here is, if the claim is true, what would have to follow? Well, there would be some extraordinary things. We'd have a massive cover-up, right? The U.S. government would be covering up all of this stuff that it has. Secondly, the U.S. government would have to have some alien technology that somehow hasn't been integrated yet, or they have technology which is itself, although it's alien technology from far away, it just happens to be one step away from where we were with regard to technology, blah, blah, blah. So these are arguments that you see in our source documents. Apply a reductio there. Next, you're going to tell me, was the burden, I'm sorry, there's an E missing there, but it's too late to get it in there. For some reason it cut off, I think, when it generated the PDF. But has the burden of proof been met, right? Now here I'm not asking, is it possible that this happened? I'm asking, do you have enough reasons to think that this is true? And that rests entirely on your analysis. And then lastly, do your conclusion. And your conclusion is going to be one paragraph that's going to be a repetition of your introductory paragraph. And it will say, so this is your conclusion paragraph. The aim of this paper was to apply reason and determination whether or not aliens landed in Roswell. First, I clearly stated the claim. Da, da, da. Second, I evaluated. Third, I evaluated support. Fourth, I provided alternative. That you just go to past tense, and that's your concluding paragraph. Okay? So you have a paragraph at the beginning that tells me what you're going to do. Then you do each one of these things. Now, each one of these things may take you more than one paragraph. That's fine. Just remember, when you move on from stating the claim to evaluating support for the claim, you want to tell me that with your next sentence, right? Third, I will evaluate support for the claim. You go through each one of these things, and at the very end of the paper, you have a paragraph that looks a lot like the first one, except everything is in the past tense. Okay, you guys, listen, I know this is a lot of work. It's a fun paper to write. If you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to contact me. It's easy to fix, and I really look forward to seeing your entries. Thanks a lot, you guys. Talk to you soon.